There is a place, not here or there, but somewhere in between. There is a space in the thin air that really can be seen. If you listen and observe, you may be surprised. Some may call it Camelot or even paradise. Some may say you cross a bridge, others through a door. But all I know about this place is that I call it Evermore. Evermore. Good evening, sweet spirits. Welcome to the show. My name is Suzanne Sorrell, and I'm the producer and host of the Evermore Paranormal Network. On this episode, we're doing something special. It's called a Ghost-A-Thon. So sit back and enjoy the show. So, Patrick, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And when I first met you, I mean, we met a couple years ago, and at first...
I think it was at a Channel 10 function in the conference room, if I remember.
Yeah, probably so. And then we started talking, running into each other, and I asked you, I said, hey, do you have any paranormal stories, ghost stories or whatever? And you said?
I had a couple, yeah.
Yeah?
I've had little touches with it off and on over the years. So is like my mother.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that stand out the most for me in my own life didn't happen until I moved out of the house I grew up in. I spent over 30 years living in the house I grew up in Vienna. And then I moved to Oakton in 2009. And it started shortly after the first occurrence I had started shortly after I had moved in over on Bush and Drive in Oakton. And I wasn't very happy at first living there. I had been so used to living where I grew up, and all those years, you know, it was the only place I'd ever lived. So living anywhere else was such a big shock. And I kept having this feeling like I needed to go back where I belong. I wanted to get out of there, go home. And I guess it was during the summer of 2009. I'd only been there a couple of months, and I have a one-bedroom condo. And the way I had the bedroom set up, my bed is kind of facing the wall towards the hallway, and the bedroom door is over here to the right near the corner. And I was sleeping with the bedroom door open, you know, to get, you know, ventilation through the bedroom. And at one point in the night, one night, I got a feeling that there was someone in the house with me, in the condo with me. And I woke up and I looked at the clock, and it was about, if I remember, it was, probably about 1:30, 2 o'clock, somewhere around there in the morning. And I looked out the bedroom door, out through the dining room towards the living room and towards the entry hall. And in a flash of an eye, I saw what looked like my father in his t-shirt and his boxer shorts dart from the kitchen doorway into the bathroom. Okay. And I only caught a glimpse. I mean, it was almost instantaneous. And I just had this strong feeling it was my father.
Yeah, if you saw that
and
much.
So I sat there for a minute. Well, actually, I was laying down, and I'd propped myself up on my shoulder because I sleep usually on my right side. And I sat there for a minute, and I just thought to myself, you're losing your mind, kid. You're you know, because I had been so upset and stressed about living there. And I was like, okay, you're cracking up. You need to get out of here. And that to me, that was the first real experience I had, I think, with something paranormal.
Did you get up and go look to see what You saw? Were there any
No.
lights on? By the
No,
way.
no, the house was dark.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember if my reading lamp that I kept on the headboard. I have one of those old headboards that's
Right.
kind of like a shelf, and I had a reading lamp on it for reading. And I can't remember if the reading lamp was on. I don't think so. I think that night I had all the lights out, and I think the only light on in the house, I have a fluorescent light above the kitchen sink, because I remember
Okay,
seeing
so
the
you had a
soft
little
little
bit.
faint glow coming
Yeah.
out of the kitchen from that light.
Now, when you told me that story initially, you said, "But why would my dad's spirit be there at your condo?" And
Yeah.
it's because he lived there before, right?
He lived there from April of 2007 to May 2008, 5 days before he died at Fairfax Hospital.
Okay, so like you said, well, he didn't die there. He didn't pass away there. So, he was just, I think he was just, you were so worried about, you weren't comfortable there. That probably wanted to make you feel more comfortable, but it might have did the opposite. Did you feel more comfortable after seeing your dad's apparition?
After I woke up the next morning in daylight, when I thought about it, I kind of felt a sense of peace and took some comfort in the fact that I thought, okay, maybe he is here just to let me know he's watching over me. He wanted me to see him so that I would get the point that he is still with me and he is watching over me.
Right. Yeah, and that's happened with me and my mom too. So I didn't see her as an apparition, though. I saw her as a big ball of light, and when I was talking about her. So a few days later, though, didn't you have some more incidents at your...
I don't know if it was a few days later. I don't remember how much later it was. It could have been a year or so later. Time flies so fast anymore. But there was another night, again, I sensed somebody was in the condo with me. And I woke up, and now I remember for sure, this time it was 1:30 in the morning because I looked at the clock on the nightstand. And this time I do remember the reading lamp was on. That's how I could read the clock. I don't have a digital clock. This is an older clock that doesn't have illuminated dial. And I remember looking, and I just remember looking out the open bedroom door. Now, the rest of the house, except for the light over the kitchen sink, was off. And I remember looking into the darkness and getting a general idea of where, like, the front door was, where the cabinet I had next to the front door was. And all of a sudden, I got this strong feeling that somebody was in the living room beyond where I could see, beyond the wall, closer to the sliding glass door into my solarium. I felt like someone was standing in the middle of the living room. And I just got a very cold, clammy feeling, and for some reason I wanted to reach out and try to call somebody, anybody, but I couldn't move to even pick up the telephone off the nightstand.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this voice said to me, close your eyes, don't move, don't get so upset that you start breathing heavily, just breathe slow and even and easy, and pretend you're asleep. They'll go away. So that's what I did. And the next thing I knew, I had fallen asleep. I woke up again. I looked at the clock. It was now 2 a.m. I still felt that somebody was in the condo with me. Now I had the feeling that they were in the kitchen, which is between me, my bedroom, and the living room. And I was
So
sure,
closer, right?
yeah, closer to me
Yeah.
physically, just on the other side of the bedroom wall. And I got an image of where they were in the kitchen, and they were standing between the kitchen sink and the stove and refrigerator. And right about that time, I heard it sounded like a tumbler, drinking tumbler. It sounded like it had been knocked off my kitchen counter onto the linoleum floor and shattered. And the first thing I thought to myself is, wait a minute, there are no glasses on the counter, because I I hadn't emptied the dishwasher. I ran the dishwasher before I went to bed, and all of the dirty glasses had been put in there. The counter was clean. And I was like, this is weird. Was somebody going through my cabinets and pulled one out and dropped it? Again, the voice said to me, because I couldn't move again. I tried to move again and grab the phone. Couldn't move. And this night I was laying actually on my back, sleeping. And again, the voice said, just close your eyes again. Don't breathe too hard. Just play possum, as my mother would have said, and you'll be fine. So I did the same thing again. The next time I woke up, it was 3:30 in the morning. And actually, I woke up, but my eyes were still closed. And I got this feeling that whatever was in the condo this time was at the foot of my bed.
Oh my goodness.
And I strained to hear anything odd, like somebody shifting their weight and the floor creaking, or, you know, somebody's pants legs rubbing up against them, you know, each other, if they were tiptoeing around, or to hear footsteps. And I heard nothing. And that is when I felt a lump in my throat, and I thought, okay, just don't move. Act like you're asleep and just let it go. Maybe this time they'll go away. And the next time I woke up, it was 8:30 in the morning. The sun was shining through the Venetian, the vertical blinds. And whatever I had sensed that was in the place with me was gone. I tried to move, and I was able to get out of bed. And the first thing I did when I got up, I went straight into the kitchen. And of course, there was nothing on the kitchen floor.
Okay.
And at first I thought, well, maybe they cleaned it up when I fell back to sleep, because sometimes I go into such a deep sleep. People can talk right over me and I won't hear them. So I did a quick little inventory of the kitchen cabinets where my drinking glasses were, and all of them were in the cabinet that should have been. All of them were in the dishwasher clean, waiting to be put away. Nothing was touched. I checked in the living room, nothing had been touched. And I thought to myself, either you have got yourself so worked up about living here that you're talking yourself in your mind into playing tricks on you, or you were visited by a spirit last night. And it made me wonder about the history of the previous owners. Because I don't know how many previous owners there were between 1978, March of 1978, when the first person bought that place and moved in, and when my parents bought it in April of 1997. The only way I'll know that is if I go to the records office and do a deed check, which I can do.
Yeah, so that was a night that was pretty, you know, crazy night, pretty scary. I mean, especially when something was moved, each time you woke up, it got closer. And here, you heard the glass break, but there was
no glass broken.
Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about some more stories that have happened to you. So, Patrick, tell me what you brought with you tonight and have the story behind it.
Well, it's my wallet, and you know, to look at it, it's a simple, ordinary wallet. But for me, it's very special because this belonged to my late father, and the way I came to get this one and another one similar to it that was his right after he died, my old wallet just fell apart, and it was when I'd gotten cheap on sale at the mall, and I didn't feel like spending any money to fix it.
Right.
And so I said to my mother, because I was low on money, I went to my mother and asked if I could borrow $20 or $30 to get a new wallet. And she said, would you mind having an old one instead of a new one? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, I have two of your father's wallets. Would you consider using one or both of those? And I said, if you can give me both of them, I'd love to have both of them. You know, they were dad's, of course.
They're special.
So
priceless, actually, you know.
Yeah. From a monetary point, not worth anything.
I know.
From a personal point, very, very treasured. and valuable to me. And, you know, after I started carrying this in the other wallet, I always had a sense that my father was literally with me, almost like he was walking right behind my right shoulder, but right up with me. Like he was almost in my back pocket. Now, I mean, I keep my wallet in my right.
Can I actually hold it and just, can I touch it and just feel it if I feel anything? I'm not psychic, but I just was wondering if I would get a sense of, I'm not psychic, but it's obviously, I do feel like there's energy with it.
I don't know how long my father had this, but I do remember seeing him taken out all the time when we were out doing things. So it was very familiar to me from the beginning of when I got it. And the funny thing is, I had this wallet one night when my father literally spoke to me. And I think having this wallet it saved me from having a horrible car accident one night. I was coming home from Woodbridge late one night along 123, and I was just this side of Occoquan, between Occoquan and Fairfax City. And they have done a lot of construction out there, and some of it's 3-lane, and then as you get closer into the county parkway, it goes back to 2 lanes to go into Fairfax City. And I was in the left bar lane, the third one over to the left. And I was a little tired, and all of a sudden a stream of cars were coming the other way, and even though they were on the other side, their lights got in my eyes and I couldn't see. And before I knew it, it was almost like instantaneous. I realized I had gone down into the ditch. It was a ditch like this, and it had tall grass in it. And I looked down real quick at the speedometer. I was doing 60 miles an hour in a tall grass ditch. As soon as I realized where I was, I heard my father's voice like he was leaning over between the 2 front seats and saying right into my ear. And he was a colorful Irishman, true and true, first-generation Irish American. So I'm not going to say it as a direct quote, exactly what he said, but he pretty much told me, take your foot off the gas, don't put your foot on the brake, don't try to turn and drive back onto 123, because there's a very good chance you'll roll the car if you do, or you'll come up blind and clip somebody else. You could cause a huge accident and cause yourself and someone else a lot of grief.
And you heard all that.
And he said, just sit still, don't panic, and just let the car stop itself. The tall grass will bring the car, and weeds will bring the car to a safe, straight stop. Just hold on to the wheel and keep the car on a straight course. And sure enough, within the next 20 seconds, I was sitting there completely stopped. And once I was sure that I was okay, I just very gently eased up the embankment, checked the coming direction, and started going. Now, I shredded a tire and destroyed the 2 rear ball joints. But I came out of it without a scratch, just a very nervous stomach and a headache from the fright. But if I hadn't listened to my father, I could have killed myself. I could have killed somebody else. I could have totaled the car. You know, so many worse things could have happened. And I remember when the tow truck got me home finally with the flat tire, and I got out of the truck, and the truck left, I took my wallet out and I kissed it, and I said, "Thank you, Dad." Because I heard his voice. I heard his voice as sure as if he were sitting right where you are right now.
I got chills big time.
Like, and you know,
he's here with us right
I'm not the first one in the family.
him.
I'm not the first one in the family since he died that Dad helped in a car accident. He also helped my mother. About, let's see, 4 months after my father died in 2008, my mother was going about her daily routine after dropping my 2 nephews off at nursery school up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And she had to go to the market. And as she pulled into the parking lot, she was creeping across the parking lot. This woman driving a huge panel van wasn't paying attention, and she was on her cell phone. And when she looked up and realized my mother was there, it was too late for her to stop. And when she hit the brakes, the van nosed down, slid into the side of my mother's Subaru, which has the trim molded into the body. It's not bolted on, it's part of the body. When the truck went back up, it caused my mother's car to roll with my mother in it. My mother told me later, when we were talking about it a couple years later, she told me that she got the feeling that the reason the car turned over so much, she felt like my father's hand grabbed the car. And it was like he was saying to her, Deanna, I can't stop the accident, but I will do everything I can to keep you from getting hurt. And sure enough, she climbed out the broken window when she let herself loose from the seatbelt. And she has had neck trouble since the 50s and shoulder trouble. When my sister got there, they went straight to her chiropractor, and the chiropractor, when he found out what she had just been through, he said, I am amazed, Deanna, but you are not the least bit out of adjustment at all. You'll be a little bruised because of the shoulder bell, but he said, it did not upset the adjustment I gave you 2 days ago.
Wow.
And my mother and I both feel, my father was watching, and see, my father always told me and my brothers and sister, I never loved another woman like I loved your mother. And I've never loved another woman since I met your mother.
That's beautiful.
And I think that, to me, I think he's proven this
And his children,
he's proven this in death. And he always said he loved us kids too. And I think in my case, he's proven that in death. Is, you know, I knew it was true before he died.
Yeah.
I believed it then,
Yes.
but he only reinforced my belief.
Well, I don't think, I mean, I've lost my mom and my dad, as you know, and I really do feel like they never really leave us. They're on the other side, yes, but they're around when we need them to watch over us, and it's comforting.
Well, there was one or two other little things he's done. One thing he did one time after my mother sold the house, right after she sold our family house that had been in our family since 1976, and she sold it in April 2011, almost 35 years. My father, I had a dream, because I was really kind of depressed and missing the house and wishing Mom hadn't sold it. I understood why she did, and it made sense, but still, you know, there was the part of me that still wanted to go home.
Exactly.
And I had a dream one night, and our house was a split level with a front porch. And the kitchen window overlooked the front porch, and under that window we had a table and some chairs. And that was one of my dad's favorite places in the house to sit when the weather was good, with a glass of iced tea, and he'd, you know, smoke his Marlboros, and a lot of times some of the family or neighbors would come and join him. And this one dream I had, he was sitting in his spot on the one side of the table. Mom was sitting on the other side of the table, and I was sitting on the other side of her, next to her. And we were all having a glass of iced tea, and it was a beautiful warm spring day, and people were walking by with the dogs and cars going by. And I remember thinking to myself, oh God, this is the way it's meant to be. I'm so happy to be back where I belong. And then my very next thought was, oh, wait a minute, this is a dream, because the house has been sold and we've been out of there for 7 months. And as soon as that thought entered my mind in the dream, I looked over towards my mom and dad, and my mom kept looking straight ahead, but my father turned to me and he said, Pat, it's all right. Everything's going to be all right. Everything is fine. It's all right. And that's when I woke up. And that's when I realized too, it was okay to miss the house. It was okay to miss the neighborhood and the neighbors. But I could always go back to see the neighbors. I still live so close. And that the house itself was just a house. And now that it's been somebody else's house for a while, I knew I would never want to go back and live in that house again. After everything I knew about it had been changed to suit the new people. You know, and they have a right to do that. And I'm glad they did. And I'm glad the house is full of kids again. But as for me ever wanting to go back and live, no, because even living there now, it would not be the same. And I think that's what Dad was trying to tell me. And then just one last quick thing. My mother got a present of seeing a psychic a couple years ago for her birthday. And my father came through, and one thing he said to her that she couldn't figure out, he told the psychic to tell my mother, he said, tell Deanna it was okay about that piece of furniture. And my mother told me 2 years later, we were together having lunch, and she just thought to tell me all about this. And when she got to that, I already had tears in my eyes that Dad was communicating with her from the other side. And I said to her, I said, Mom, I said, are you honestly saying you don't know what that means? And she said, I don't have any clue. I said, I do. I said, I know what it means. And she said, what do you think it means? I said, I know what it means. She said, what does it mean? I said, it's his easy chair. I said, remember when I agonized I said when I got rid of the living room furniture, and I was okay getting rid of the sofa and the dining room set, but getting rid of that easy chair that he'd spent the last few days in before we took him to the hospital. And she said, oh, I forgot about that. I said, he is telling us that he isn't upset, because I was so afraid that he probably would have disapproved of me doing that. And I said, I think that's his way of saying it's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your stories with me. I really enjoyed hearing them.
It was my pleasure.
We'll have you back sometime when more things happen.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
So thank you for watching the Evermore Paranormal Network. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ghost-A-Thon. Until next time, just remember, life goes on. So in the end, what have I said is only that I'm sure. For all I know about this place is that I call it evermore.